Greetings from the set of Metro and More at Metropolitan Community College, serving more than 50,000 students with over 120 programs at our 8 locations in the daytime, evening, weekends, or online. And I'm Kent Pavelka. Welcome again to Metro and More of what you need to know about Metropolitan Community College. We're going to be revisiting a topic that we have had occasion to discuss in the past, but there are always new developments. And today, in the next half hour, talking about Metropolitan Community College's Disability Student Services and Universal Access with Deb Eppenbaugh, the Interim Executive Director of Applied Technology Center, and Melinda Classen, Disability Support Services Counselor. Melinda to my far left and Deb in the middle. And it's good to have you both on the show.
Thank you.
We were chatting before we went on air. It's been a long time since we have had a chance to talk about this, but you guys have been on the show before.
Yes.
And it's good to have you back.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Maybe just start a little bit about your history with the college, each one of you. How long have you been with Metro now?
25 years.
Mm-hmm.
The first jobs I had with the college were as a trio counselor, working with first-generation, low-income, academically disadvantaged. And then I went and was an academic counselor. And then I've added disability support services to my counseling job and just recently moved to interim executive director at the ATC.
Yeah. Applied technology and disability student services and support, universal access, to some might be a disconnect.
It's absolutely a connect because oftentimes we see individuals who are more hands-on with work, that they're possibly people that are going to benefit from our services. And then trio, first generation students, it's all connected together very well.
Yeah,
and
I'm sure it is.
I've had an opportunity to work with a lot of wonderful students and staff in the past 25 years.
You've mentioned TRIO a couple times. A lot of folks don't know what that is.
TRIO is a federal government program that's through the Department of Education. That specific job is to serve first generation, low income, academically disadvantaged students. It's been at Metro for probably 26, 27 years.
Yeah. Melinda, we were talking, it was 2008 last time we were on the show together. And you've been with the college now, how long?
33 years.
33 years, so we're all veterans here.
Yep.
Talk a little bit, before we get into what's new, maybe a little history about disability support services at Metropolitan Community College. Started in 1976,
1976,
right?
and the program was initially only for students who were deaf or hard of hearing, and it was called HIP, Hearing Impaired Program. And then in 1980, it changed to being called Special Support Services, and it broadened to serving all students with disabilities. And then probably, 12 years ago, we changed the name to Disability Support Services because it defined better for folks who were trying to access services. It defined better who we were.
Mm-hmm.
So we've been here since 1976.
That's a real fast recap of 38 years. You haven't been here that long, but you've been here a long time.
1980.
This all looks really different today than it did back then, doesn't it?
It does. It does. But it still serves the same purpose, which is to provide access for students with disabilities.
How many students do you suppose you help with these programs?
We served 1,774 students with disabilities last year, college-wide.
And those disabilities have a huge range of...
They do.
They do.
We serve a lot of students with invisible disabilities. So, when people think of disabilities, they're often thinking of somebody in a wheelchair or somebody that's blind. But most of our students don't have a visible disability. They may have attention deficit disorder or mental health disorders. And so sometimes that makes it hard in the classroom for students to explain their disabilities to faculty.
And they need to do that? Obviously they need to do that.
Yeah. They do. They are required to disclose their disability in order to access services. If we don't know that they need services, we can't provide them. And so that's something that the disability support services counselors do, is the students will disclose to them, and then we gather documentation of the disability. and then we discuss the accommodations with the student, and then we send email notifications to the faculty at the beginning of the quarter, letting them know that the student has the opportunity to utilize their accommodations for the quarter, and then the students and the faculty are encouraged to discuss with each other what those accommodations look like.
1,700 some students served. Any idea how that might compare to other institutions in terms of the percentage compared to the total population of the student body?
Well, nationally, it's about 7% of the college population will have a disability, and that's true at Metro also. But in terms of, for example, the state of Nebraska, we actually have the largest number of students with disabilities at a college in the state.
Okay,
Yeah.
I was going to say.
Yeah, larger than any other college in the state, yeah.
So talk about the responsibilities of the college. I mean, there are a lot of things involved here. There's law. I mean, there's federal law. Is there state law that dovetails with that in terms of requiring services? How does it all work?
Well, I think the main, everyone's familiar with the ADA, which was started in 1990, the Americans with Disabilities Act. And it's really not disability support services. Our role is to provide the access and to facilitate the access. But providing services is a college-wide responsibility that we're legally obligated to meet. So we have lots of cooperation with faculty. We have lots of staff that help us provide access. We provide books in alternate format to a lot of students because they have reading disabilities. The online staff has worked with us to provide access for our online classes too. So it's really a team Metro service, although we're the ones that coordinate the services.
So you make a distinction between access and being proactive with help. I mean, those are two different things. To provide access is one thing, but to go beyond that is another, right?
Right. I think. Go ahead.
Well, one of the differentiations is between access and success. Those are really two of our main issues, that we help students have access, but the success is their responsibility. And so at the end of the day, it's college. And so what we're trying to do is help students have all the tools they need to have access and to do the very, very best that they can do. And we, of course, want students to be successful, but we cannot guarantee success. Right. That's the difference. Do
you have any numbers on success versus access and how that might compare to others?
Well, we do I'm sorry, I didn't bring that information with me, but we look at the graduation rates and the grade point averages of students every year, those who work with disability support services and those who don't. And if we don't meet, we exceed what the general college population is, yes.
That's great. But there are, besides the ADA, we're talking about civil rights issues. We're talking about, and there was the Amendment Act also, right?
Right.
What is required versus what you are actually? I mean, there's the minimum in terms of requirement, and then going beyond the minimum. How would you describe where Metro's at in that respect?
That's a tough question.
I think that we're a community college. We have a community college philosophy, and so student success and student access go hand in hand. We want our students to be successful, and we're small enough that most of the time faculty know students in classrooms and they're aware when they're struggling, and then they will notify us, and then we try to step in rather than waiting for the student to fail. We'll try to step in and be as supportive as possible.
Sure.
Sometimes students don't, when you start college, there is so much information that is thrown your way. And so sometimes students have been told something and we think, oh, they already know that. But there's just so much information and it doesn't all stick. And so stepping back in and reminding and taking someone to an academic success program in terms of TRIO or what used to be called the ARC, which is now called Learning and Tutoring Center, or just in terms of using accessing their email. Maybe they haven't even done that at the college yet.
Yeah.
And so helping them utilize the services that are available to them.
A lot of terms that maybe would be helpful to identify for folks. Reasonable accommodation, it's something that is a standard.
Well, there's a definition, which is the fundamental alteration of essential components and course objectives, which is pretty complicated. But basically, we don't go in, you take the same test as everyone else, but you may have the test read to you, or you may get extended time. So it's everything we do for accommodations is based on the documentation and most importantly, our discussion with the student so that they can give us information about their disability and how the accommodations are going, like Melinda said, not make them successful, but to give them access to the class.
So the requirement to succeed in terms of the academic challenge isn't any different than any other student. It's just helping them get there.
That's correct.
Yeah.
And that's really tough when high school kids transition, because the way I describe it to parents and to students is, you have a right to go to high school. It's a legal right. College is an opportunity. So the laws are different, and oftentimes students struggle with that, as do their parents, because they do modify tests in high school for a student, where here we don't. So some of the things, I always look at high school kids, May 8th, they graduate around then, and their parents can have access to all their records. They can call up their teachers, they can call the principal, they can find out if they're doing their homework, and then suddenly September 1st they come to college and all those rights have gone away.
Yeah, as a parent. Yeah.
Yes, and that's a big transition for a lot of students. And like Melinda mentioned, a lot of our students don't want to use their accommodations, don't want to be identified. So oftentimes it'll take a quarter, because remember, it's their responsibility to tell us. No records follow them through the high school. So fall is usually a really busy time for us, but sometimes winter is even as busy, because students realize they do need to meet with us to get accommodations.
Yeah, that's an interesting part of the equation, the reticence to identify, even though it could be helpful.
Right.
Yeah. So you've got responsibilities, the college, obviously. What about you've kind of alluded to some of the responsibilities the student has to identify, for one thing. How's that work? How do you self-identify initially?
Well, that's part of providing information. There's information on our website. We work with a team of people in student services, the academic advisors, financial aid. If a person discloses that they have a disability, then it becomes Metro's responsibility to follow up with those students. So the advisors will refer people to us. We work with a group of high school people that will oftentimes notify us. High schools are doing a really good job of letting us know about kids coming in and telling the kids, you have to go and talk to a disability support service person.
So the high school person is not going up beyond would it be legal for them to tell you, or they're just encouraging the student?
We're working with them to make sure that they're telling the students that.
Yeah, gotcha.
So, for instance, I go out to Papillion La Vista High School South and work with kids out there so that they see me and know my name. And that's what we all do. We do presentations.
And then you mentioned the parents are handcuffed after high school, but do they have responsibilities at all regarding their students when they come to Metropolitan Community College?
Well, students can sign a form of FERPA, which is the Federal Educational Rights Protection Act, giving their parents or caseworkers or somebody the right to look at their academic records, the right to call and talk with us.
FERPA, huh?
FERPA. And, I look at it as you have raised this child since birth, and possibly you've had to do a lot of intervention to get services. So it's a challenge for parents when they hit college to back away and let that child kind of start adventuring on their own. So we work closely with parents to help them understand the processes at Metro, and that probably their kid's going to have to study a lot more than he did in high school.
Are most of the students reticent to sign that? Or do they want their
No.
folks involved?
Most of the time they want their
Yeah.
folks
Yeah,
involved.
they do.
And that's helpful.
It's very
It's
helpful.
very,
Continues to
it's
be
very
very
helpful.
helpful,
yeah.
Yes, it's very helpful.
You alluded to online accessibility, because that's a big part of education now, post-secondary education.
It is.
What kinds of things are you talking about?
Well, Dr. Mary Wise, who's in charge of the online programs here, 3 or 4 years ago really took a strong stand on, we're going to do what we need to do to provide access to our online courses. And so there was a committee that met, and we actually, the individuals that work with our online programs found some information, and there's ways you can go into our online server and make it accessible for like a screen reader, or to make it so you can hear it if you can't read it. So but if it doesn't work, then that's where we step in and work with the college staff and faculty to make sure that there is access.
I want to talk about where folks can get help on the various campuses, and we've got some slides we can show you about that, so we'll get those ready and show them. But because you do break it down to each campus, is that right?
We do. We have a disability support services counselor at every campus and center. At the South Omaha campus is Chris Holst, and Chris has many, many years of experience with disability services and is always available to talk to students.
That's at South.
That's South Omaha campus, and his office is in the Student Services Center there in the Connector building. Then at the Sarpy Center is Stephanie Albers, and Stephanie is actually our newest member of our team. She's been here for about 5 years, and she has helped us with technology in a great way because she's a digital native rather than a digital immigrant. And what I mean by that is that she grew up in technology and knows how to use it, and has helped us access it, and really has been very helpful to us. And then at the Elkhorn Valley campus is Chris Tarr, and Chris Tarr was a TRIO counselor also for 16 years prior to joining the Disability Support Services staff. And so she handles the Elkhorn Valley campus, the Fort Omaha campus, the Fremont campus and Fremont Center, and also the Applied Technology Center. So she's available too, and then I'm at the Fort Omaha campus.
Very good. The best way to mccnab.edu, and there are the rest of the slides for these folks. More information can be gotten on all of this at the website, right?
Right. Correct. Right.
Very good. Where do you see DSS going in the future?
We're always going to be here, and we're advocates for our students, but we're also part of the team for faculty. So disabilities are going to change, access is going to change. For instance, the iPad, that provides a lot of access to students who possibly wouldn't have those resources in the past, or wouldn't be able to do. You can get your iPad to read to you. You can enlarge things. You can change the colors. And remember, a disability is anything, so it could be somebody's colorblind, but the teacher's using red and they can't read red. So the access to technology is really going to make our lives, I think, easier, and our students' lives better.
And your job's harder because
We have to learn.
with changing technology.
Right.
Requires becoming familiar with the changes and then adapting to it. Are you working with iPads now, or?
Yeah.
We do have iPads for our students, and I haven't checked anything out, but I let them use them in my office when we're doing things online, or they want to show me something. So the college is very supportive of providing access and providing services. So we just have to get up to speed with them all.
Sure. You said disabilities are going to change. What do you mean by that?
Well, for instance, 20 years ago, had you ever heard of autism or Asperger's?
Right.
So as our technology and diagnostic technology increases, we're going to have people that have different disabilities. The vets returning back, we work with a lot of our veterans that have had post-traumatic stress disorder, anxiety issues, back injuries, physical injuries. So the populations are going to change. The labels are going to change, and
The nuances.
right.
Mm-hmm.
So we actually attend a conference every year, a national conference that helps us stay up to speed. And then Melinda's on the board for the Win Ahead. Ahead is the national organization, and then Win Ahead is the Nebraska, Iowa. Nebraska and Iowa?
Western Iowa,
Yeah,
Nebraska.
Western Iowa. And that's, sharing with colleagues. We have close relationships with Bellevue University and UNO and College of St. Mary's. Those, that helps us.
Mm-hmm.
Especially because a lot, Metro's a feeder for a lot of the other colleges. So the time a student leaves Metro and has worked with DSS, we can easily transition them to other colleges because of our relationships with other professionals that are in disability support services.
Either of you or both of you have just a general feel for where we would be if post-secondary education didn't provide this for this population? I mean, it's making a big difference. It has for a long time, right?
It is, and one of the saddest things would be that we would lose out on the opportunities for the growth and the knowledge and just the innovation that all students can provide, and especially students with disabilities who in the past perhaps did not attend college. And so the numbers will maintain, they will continue to be high, and because of an inclusive atmosphere in the K-12 systems. And so, as Deb said, our jobs aren't going away. We're taking care of civil rights for students, but we're also providing them with growth opportunities as individuals, as citizens, to be productive.
Yeah, not to mention the contributions to the economy, the culture, the society in general, all a positive. I want to make sure that I don't use up all the time just chatting with you here. What do you most want our folks to know about your programming?
Well, I think it's, reasonable accommodations is what we work with the student, and we work with the faculty. I would rather have a student come and visit with me, make an appointment to visit with me. We talk about it, tell them what the possibilities are, and then make the decision if they're going to come to Metro or not. But I think it's important that they come and talk with us early on so that we can get things arranged for them, so we can work with the faculty, the testing centers. And that, I don't know that happens. Sometimes they think they can just walk in and everything is just going to be in place. But it does take us sometimes 6 to 8 weeks to get accommodations lined up. If they need their textbooks set up, it can take 4 to 5 weeks from us to get the textbook from the publisher. So the earlier they come in and talk with us and get things set up, the better it is for the student.
Goes back to the conversation about initially a lot of students will come in and don't ask for the help, and
Right.
and then hopefully most of them who realize that they need it do. Is that the case, or do you have dropouts, or as a result?
I'm sure there are some dropouts, but usually we're pretty proactive, and faculty are really good at notifying us if there's concerns. We don't tell the faculty what the disability is, that we just provide the accommodations, or the letter tells them what the accommodations are going to be.
What's the reason for that?
Well, that's the part of the law.
I see.
We don't disclose what the disability is. Now, the student has the right to talk to and we encourage in our accommodation letter that the students talk with the faculty and develop that relationship, because we read the documentation, we determine with the student what the accommodations are going to be, but then it's really the student and the faculty member whose role to make sure that they're being provided.
And that understanding can help facilitate that beyond
Right.
just having the accommodation being present.
And our faculty, at Metro have really rallied and work so well with disability support services. You know, they want to make sure they're doing the right thing for our students and the best thing for our students. So I'd say that helps make our jobs so much less, I shouldn't say less stressful, because
More successful.
thank you,
Yeah.
more successful.
Yeah.
And our students are more
Sure.
successful because of that.
Yeah. It's just an interesting reality that there's this reticence initially to reach out when it can be so helpful. What are you thinking about that I'm not?
Well,
that you'd like to share?
I kind of dovetails with what Deb said. If folks just need to know that the services are available, and all they have to do is disclose and ask for, and it isn't that big of a deal to say that that you're a student with a disability, because we have so many students with disabilities at the college. It really is not rare that you're going to have a number of people with disabilities in your class. And our faculty tend to stick around for a long time, and they have a lot of experience, and they're knowledgeable, and they care enough to do the right thing. We don't run into a lot of difficulty with faculty providing accommodations. That's a rarity also. And you know, Metro is extremely accessible in a lot of ways because it's a community college and it has so many different locations. And if I'm a person who lives in Papillion, I can start at Sarpy. And then I could go to another campus if I want to. And if I'm a person who works in the morning and I only can take classes in the afternoon or in the evening, then we will work with students to help them find what works best for them. We also have a program called Pass to Class with Metro Area Transit, in which the college pays for the transportation for students to use Metro Area Transit, and which includes MOBI, which is the specialized carrier for students with who are approved MOBI riders, students with disabilities. And those passes help them break down the barrier of not being able to afford to get to school, to take the transportation to get to school. And so mainly the two campuses that use it the most are going to be South and Fort, because they're the two campuses that utilize the bus system the most.
This is not an easy job, is it? I mean, given just intrinsically, it's not easy, but with all the different sites, I mean, it's not like there's one campus.
Right.
So,
Right.
And that brings up a question about cost. I mean, this is a healthy budget item, I'm sure, in Metropolitan Community College's budget. What about to the student?
There are no additional costs for any services to students. One example I would give you in terms of determining services that's really difficult because we're multi-campus is interpreters for students who are deaf or hard of hearing. And so if you have a student who needs an interpreter, and you've got a student at the Fort who needs an interpreter and one at Elkhorn, if you were all in the same building on the same location, that interpreter could easily walk from one class to the other.
Sure.
But in terms of the distances, now we're going to have an interpreter or a team of interpreters on different locations, which is going to add to the cost. But there are no costs to students at all for
Very
the
good.
services provided.
About a minute left.
Okay.
What is most important here, that our folks understand that these services are available and they accommodate themselves, or that you will accommodate them, but you need to hear from them, right?
I think the most important thing for me is for people to realize that this is very private. It's not, we don't have like special education classes. It's all very private, it's all very individualized. So when you come to Metro, people aren't going to know if you have a disability unless it's a visual disability. And we
Right.
work hard on keeping that privacy.
Deb, Melinda, thank you very much. MCC's Disability Student Services and Universal Access. Appreciate the update, and thanks for the great work.
Thank you.
Thank
And
you.
thank you for being with us again on Metro and More. Our mission is to better acquaint you with the mission, leadership, and the reach of the college. I'm Kent Pavelka for Metropolitan Community College.
This has been a MetroVision production produced by Metropolitan Community College.
Whatever option fits best, Metropolitan Community College is focused on you.
Come experience it for yourself. Metropolitan Community College.